Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Aarna Sahu, host of Aarna's News, where on this podcast channel, I aim to eliminate the gender gap in the STEM fields by featuring inspiring female professionals and highlighting their stories and accomplishments to further encourage girls. Today on episode 93.
When you start working on something that has like a big vision behind it, it will take significantly longer than you would ever imagine to get to the point that you want to get to the point. So I want everybody to understand that when you step into this game, you have to play for the long run and don't expect the big return after 2-3 years. Yes, you will read some stories that some startups have made it after 2 or 3 years, but you don't know the backstory behind that. So I wish more people would know that, first of all, startups are super hard to, go after, and the chances that startups succeed is pretty low. yet if you don't fail and you're still in the game, it still means you're making it, but in a slower pace. But I feel like
Today on episode 93, I'm pleased to answer a guest, Neda Emami. Neda Emami is the founder and CEO of Sag.io, a platform revolutionizing outdoor gear rentals. She holds a bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering and has always been passionate about business, leading her to work in business roles within the medical device industry. Driven by her love for entrepreneurship and outdoor adventures, she launched Sag.io, the Airbnb for outdoor gear, 2 years ago. Neda is dedicated to democratizing outdoor activities, making them affordable and accessible for everyone. So thank you so much, Neda, for being here today. Before we dive into the questions, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks for having me. So my name is Neda Emami. You did a great job telling about what I do and where I come from, but I'm Neda, and I'm the founder and CEO of Sag.io, and we are the Airbnb for outdoor equipment, and our goal and mission is to become the one-stop shop for outdoor gear and adventures.
I love that. So my first question for you is tell us a bit about your career path.
Sure. Well, this is a good question for me because my career path has nothing like a linear career path. It wasn't like I graduated and I started working in the field related to what I studied, and then I continued. It has a lot of ups and downs, and it has a lot of change of direction, but I'm happy to tell you about it. So I graduated from biomedical engineering in Iran, and immediately after my graduation, I started working in the same field in a company with a very high reputation in Iran. But I was mostly working in the business side of the company, and my job mostly was negotiation and closing deals with medical device companies that we were working with. So I was loving it. It was absolutely something that I was passionate about. I always wanted to study biomedical engineering, and I was very passionate about the business. And then I moved to the United States, and then I worked in the same field, doing the same job for another company here. But then I kind of grew up, and I kind of developed my own way of thinking about how to do business. So there was a point that the way that I wanted to do business was very misaligned with the way that my boss wanted to do business. And it was hard for us to keep working together. So that was the point that I stopped working with that company. But then I realized this is something that I discovered within me, that I kind of don't want to work for someone. So how can I find a way to work for myself? And then back then, I was kind of guided towards the way that all my family have taken. So I have a family with a lot of doctors. As Iranians, we love to be doctors. So I started pursuing dentistry. So I started taking classes in college, and I took the exam, and I applied for colleges, and I actually almost got into UCSF. I was in the wait list for UCSF Dental School. And I probably how waitlist works. people who get accepted, if they don't decide to enroll, you will get it. But UCSF is one of the highest ranking universities in the medical and dental. So the chances that you get in is like low if you're on the wait list. And I didn't get in because nobody decided not to come to UCSF. But that was a wake up call for me because I was like, oh my God, that was so close. And I knew that that was, again, wasn't something that I wanted to do. And I asked for myself, is it something that I want to keep doing for the next 30 years? And the answer was no. And again, another thing that I realized about myself was I didn't like the idea of knowing what's going to happen the next day. I really like the challenge of just figuring out and solving problems. So that was the time that I was like, okay, I think I really love the path of entrepreneurship. And that was the time that I started my company. And I told everybody about it. Everybody called me crazy because I wanted to go to dental school and now I wanted to start a company with no background in tech. But yeah, that's how I got to this point.
I love that. And what you said over there, like you didn't want to figure out what was going to happen like tomorrow or the day after, but you wanted to solve the problems on the go. And and you said before like you wanted to be your own boss. Like you kind of figured it out as you were like on the job and then you realized and you made the switch. And of course, it was definitely a wake-up call, but you did something that you truly enjoyed and you ran after that, and that's super commendable.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's not something that everybody would plot for you. I would say if you have an entrepreneur in your company, it would be so much easier for you to decide to do this. Like my family, they're very conservative. Everybody, again, is like doctors. They have very stable, great, high paying jobs. And for me to wanting to start a company from scratch was something that nobody had an idea how to do. And everybody was like, are you sure? Is it going to work? And I was like, I don't know if it's going to work, but that's something that I know that I want to do. So, yeah.
And I love that. And you just decided to do it regardless of what people around you might have said, because you come from a family where their profession was not something you wanted to partake in. And so you still did it, regardless of that. And that I love that.
Thank you. It was hard. It was really hard, to be honest. It was not easy at all, especially my parents. They were like so worried about me because, again, I'm an immigrant here. All my families are back in Iran. So it was just like I was deciding for my own future. And they were so happy for me going to dental school because they knew that the future is bright and the money is there and it's safe. And, it was just like their peace of mind that I know like the past, like everything was so clear at the end, but like I knew deep down that's not my personality. I would die if I had chosen that path.
I love that. I love that. And you just decided to follow your heart, and here you are.
Yeah, totally.
All right. So my question for you is, what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours? And do you have any tips to succeed?
Um, well, I think the best advice would be just try to get to know yourself. I feel like this is the most important thing anybody can do, especially people like in like maybe college age or Gen Z, like before getting to college or even in the college. Just try to get to know yourself and try to filter out all the noise from outside. I understand like your family wants you to do something, the society wants you to do something, and it's so hard not to listen to all those things because there's something that by society it's defined like you have to get a job and you have to buy a house and you have to start a family. Like yes, this is something that society keeps telling us, but like what does your heart tells you, what does your gut tells you, and who you are? It's so important to get to know yourself, and you can do that by reading books and meeting people who they inspire you. Like you can kind of resonate with their story and feel like, oh, something inside me just sparkled, like, oh, I feel like I can like feel connected to this person's story. And then you kind of know like, okay, maybe I want to do that, because it's on you to find out who you are, what you want to do with your life, and no one's going to come and applaud you if you choose the path that they told you to choose, because again, at the end of the day, we're all out here by ourselves. So you just want to choose a path that you're happy with, you're satisfied with. I think becoming satisfied with what you do is the most important thing, and being fulfilled, and kind of like make sure that you don't choose a path because everybody else are doing those things, or they sound like really good on the paper or again on social media. So I think the best thing is just like get to know yourself and find out what makes you really happy and fulfilled. And what was the second question?
And do you have any tips to succeed?
Yeah, just like again, read books, meet people who inspire you, listen to podcasts, and just there is this sentence that I truly believe in, that the stories are the new medicine. So like a lot of times when I was feeling so disappointed and down and I felt like okay, there's nothing else I can do, I would listen to a story, I would read a story and was like, oh my God, this person could overcome all these things, therefore I think I can do that too. So yeah, just meet inspiring people. I think that would be really helpful.
And I love what you said. You just have to get to know yourself. And once you find something you like, you just gotta grab on because for you, you had your path paved out for you, being a dentist. But then you said, like, 30 years from now, do I really want to do this? And you're like, no, I don't. So you decided to pave
Exactly.
your own path. And like, you've kind of discovered yourself as you were doing it, and you decided to grab onto that because you just thought that, like, okay, if I do something I don't enjoy, I will not have fun. So, you got to know yourself and you got to like pursue what you liked.
Yes, that's so true. And honestly, I feel like another really good advice would be listen to your gut. There is this book called How to Be a Leader. And in that book, it talks about we have three brains. It's like our head brain, our heart brain, and our gut brain. And I'm not going to talk about the other two, but our gut brain is actually a brain that tells you, okay, do this. Because a lot of time we try to only listen to our head brain because it's logical, but your gut brain actually has a lot of information that has been accumulated over years, even from your ancestors, from the time that you were an infant. Like it collected information. So I feel like listening to your gut is so important. And just to give you context, when I was getting ready for dental school, in my head it was like, this is the right thing to do, right? But then my gut was like, but I don't feel this is the right thing. And every morning when I was waking up, I felt like, oh my God, another day. I just don't want to do this. But then since I started working on my startup, even though the life that I'm living right now is more difficult, but I wake up with so much passion and so much purpose. And I'm like, okay, another day, another opportunity. So it's just like the way that you look at life changes.
And people think that your gut brain and your gut like mind can be like it can't tell you anything useful, but that's such like false information because your gut and your intuition really just tells you what's going on and like if that's something that you would intrinsically like because we always think that our head brain is more important, like the facts are more important, like the pay and whatever. But sometimes and most of the times you gotta listen to what your gut has to say.
I absolutely agree with that.
All right. And my question is, what is a common myth about your profession that you want to debunk?
Um, so when you are a startup founder, a lot of people think that you're already rich, you're a millionaire. Everybody look at you as like, oh, you have your own company, you must do so well. And I think whoever is not in the field of startup, they have this perception of, oh, you've made it already because you've been working on this for 2 years, for example. But the fact is, when you start working on something that has like a big vision behind it, it will take significantly longer than you would ever imagine to get to the point that you want to get to the point. So I want everybody to understand that when you step into this game, you have to play for the long run and don't expect the big return after 2, 3 years. Yes, you will read some stories that some startups have made it after 2 or 3 years, but you don't know the like backstory behind that. So I think I wish more people would know that first of all, startups are super hard to, you know, um, go after, and like the chances that startups succeed is pretty low, yet if you don't fail and you're still in the game, it still means like you're making it, but like in a slower pace. But I feel like I hope more people would know that it takes significantly longer than anybody would have ever imagined for you to succeed.
And it just goes to show that what you see right now isn't always, the true case. Like, for example, if someone's starting out a startup and they want to be like the next Google, of course, that's an amazing mission. You might think, oh, you must have, everything set for you. But on the other end, that person who's probably starting that, company might not know what's going on, and it's probably going to be really difficult. So it's like a double-edged sword. What you see right now may not always be the case. Yes, a lot of startups do amazing and they become really fruitful, but it's a really tough journey. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. And my question is, if you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
Um, well, maybe something about, because I think your audience are people in your own age, right? And I feel like, how would you how would you find out what you want to do in the future? And how do you know that it's like a right thing to do? Um, there is no right or wrong. This is something that I realized over the last couple of days. I was one of those people that I believe there are like things that are right and there are things that are wrong. And I feel like, first, if you want to get into the entrepreneurship, start as soon as possible, because you will fail sooner and then you will win sooner, because you will fail first and then you will win. And just don't be afraid of other people's judgment. I feel like developing courage is one of the most important things that you have to practice if you want to, again, pursue the entrepreneurship. And just try things. Don't think that what other people might think about you, because again, that was something that was holding me back for a while. It's like, oh, what if this person gonna think about me, what that person is gonna think? Like, nobody cares about you. That's the honest answer. And even they do, they just give you a comment and they move on with their lives. So just do what you think that is right at that moment for you, and it might not work, but that's okay. As long as your intention is just to learn from that experience and make the next decision, I think the more experiments you try during the early ages before you get into like super serious career lives, the faster you can find out what is your true path and what is your calling.
I completely agree. And if you are concerned with what other people think about you, just remember that what they think about you is not in your control. I actually saw this a couple of days on social media, a couple of days ago. And, if you're doing something, of course, people might be judgmental. You'll have your supporters, you'll have people who are going to be envious of you. But what those other people that's not in your control. What is in your control is if you execute your idea, if you work on your plan, and if you do something that you truly enjoy, and if you find yourself and do something that you love, that those are the things that you can control.
That's 100% true. And I feel like the more you practice this courage and confidence, like the more confident you become, the less you would care about what other people would think. Like, I can remember in early days when I was talking about my idea, it was just like an idea. And I wasn't confident at all because, again, I don't have a tech background and I feel like, oh, what if I fail? But that's totally okay if I fail. Like, it took me a couple of years to understand that even if this doesn't work, I accumulated so much experience and I've met such a great network throughout this years that these are the things that I could gain from this. So there's no losing. It's only learning lessons, and it's just you gain experience. And I feel like even if you lose, you will gain more experience because you don't want to repeat them the next time that you want to try something. But I remember like if people would ask me questions about what if this doesn't work, what if like if I start crying. I was like, I don't know, because my anxiety would take over and I feel like, oh my God, what if this doesn't work? I just quit dental school and there's no way going back and I ruined my future. So like my anxiety would totally take over of like my brain and my whole body and I would freak out. But then I feel like if you have a better understanding of your emotions, something that I highly recommend to you and all the listeners, go watch Inside Out 2. It shows you how you should be aware of your emotions and you can just like call them out. So like, oh, this is my anxiety talking. I just have to like do something about it because it happens a lot, especially when you're an entrepreneur. Your anxiety can take control a lot of times. So like know your feelings, know your emotions, and try to have a control over them. Like let them exist, all of them. You're not trying to suppress any of your feelings, but just be aware of their existence and don't let one or another take control of your actions.
I mean, yeah, I love that movie. I love Inside Out too.
You watched it?
Yep, I loved it.
Uh,
And also, you might not even realize that certain emotions are taking over. Like if you're really anxious, you might not realize that in the present moment. But, once you're aware of that, maybe you can circumnavigate it and you can be more aware. It can help your current situation.
yeah, 100%, 100%.
And then my question for you is, what are the best resources/books that have helped you find your career path?
Ooh, books. So the really good books that I would recommend for whoever wants to start the entrepreneurial journey, starting a startup would be first Traction. Um, and this book gives you a good general idea of how a business should be formed and how it will function. So, just like if you have no idea about how to run a business, I mean, I think your generation are so much more aware because of all the resources and people talking about businesses on social media so much more. But that book helped me a lot to understand like, okay, this is the structure of a business and this is how it should be formed. Another book that really helped me was the Atomic Habit by James Clear. That was like one of my favorite, and it changed my daily lifestyle. So I'm so grateful for that book. Another book that I recently came across, and I feel like it's kind of describe me and people who are like me who have changed direction in their career, called a Dark Horse. So if you feel like, oh, I'm doing this and it doesn't make me happy, but what if I want to change it and people would judge me? Just I highly recommend to read that book, Dark Horse. And I see a lot of parents getting so anxious about their kids not doing really good in school. It's like, what's going to happen with that kid's future? Like recently, I suggested the book to one of my friends because he was so worried about like, my son is not doing great at school, but he's so smart. And I'm like, he's going to be fine. Yeah, your son's grade is not going to define his future. And I was like, read this book and you will be good. Like you will find faith in your son. And another book, I think Shoe Dog is really good. It's the story of the Nike. So yeah, these are the really good books that I think can give you some sense of like what it is like to be a founder or an entrepreneur. And I think the more you know about what you're going to face along the way, the easier for you to make a decision if you want to step into this. Because there's another thing that I confidently say, being an entrepreneur, being a startup founder is not for everyone. And I feel like again, it has been glamorized for from outside. Everybody wants to have a startup, but like the moment you step into it, it has a lot of ups and downs that you must be so ready for every single challenge. And you have to embrace the challenges. It's not like you have to deal with the challenges. You have to love the challenges, right? Because that's going to be your everyday life. So just make sure that this is something that you want to pursue and you want to go after.
Yeah, and in order to get to the good stuff, you have to be good with the bad stuff.
100%, 100%. Another thing is like, again, um, get to know who you really are and what you really want to do. Because like a lot of people want to get a job at like seven magnificent companies like Microsoft, Google, and that's great. That's wonderful. You can get paid really well, and you can get have like a really nice, future in your career. And it's like nice to have a income every month coming into your account by doing the job. Like it's such a kind of like the mindset of like I know the result of my work, right? So it gives you some peace. But like the nature of our job is not like, even though I'm working so hard, maybe for the next 2 years I still don't make any money, and you have to be okay with that. So again, it's just like the more you educate yourself about the thing that you step into, the easier for you to make a decision if it's for you or not.
Absolutely. And it's even easier if it's something that you truly enjoy and you wake up every day, happy that you're there in the present moment and yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And my question for you is what do you think is the vital factor that shaped your career? What was your life before learning it and what was your life after learning it?
For me, again, I think it's the confidence building. It's all about the confidence. It's all about the mindset. It's all about you believing in you and then other people believe in you. Like it's funny because when I remember when we got started, we immediately started asking people if they want to invest in our company. And then when I look at myself and when I look back and I'm like, I wouldn't invest in myself back then. I had no confidence. I had no idea what I was gonna do. And again, I would get pissed at people who would say no to me. And now that I kind of like grew up in the last years, I understand that, okay, the lack of confidence there, the lack of knowledge of like what I'm doing, it makes so much sense for people not wanting to risk their money with me. And then the more I become confident, the more I can have people's trust. Because again, if you're confident in yourself, you know that you're going to make it. Therefore, other people will believe in you and they, oh, okay, she's going to make it. And then they will come and help you. You're going to have like your team, and then people will give you investments. So I feel like the more you have confidence in who you are, and then the next is the more you have confidence in what you're building, can shape you and your career. And I feel like, again, for me as a girl who came from Iran, um, it took me a while to build that confidence because it's not something that we've been taught at home. It's something that you have to learn in the society. And it's not that we get applauded for becoming confident. We would be called intimidating, but not confident. But that's okay. Again, so I think like if somebody work on their confidence and just like again, it shouldn't be like ego talking. It should be like you're in peace with yourself and you're confident with who you are. You don't want to fit in every box that they put in front of you. It's like, okay, this is who I am. I worked for this, and this is what I'm building, and this is what I'm offering. So just build that character and build that confidence. And I think that's very, very important.
Absolutely. And when you take your first steps, it's going to be super hard and super scary. But I think confidence, as you said, just comes from practice. And once you start doing it over and over again, you start to build the pieces, and then, your self-confidence starts to rise.
Another thing, again, that helps you to build confidence is you build confidence over the evidence of the act that you've taken and you see the results, right? So you can't take confidence overnight. You build confidence over a period of time of doing things and getting results for doing those things, and you can prove to yourself that, look, I've done those things, therefore I have the confidence to say that I have some expertise in this field. So I don't think confidence, again, is not something that you go and stand in front of the mirror and say to yourself, like, I'm confident, I'm confident. Like, that's not the way that it works. It's more of like the more you put yourself into situations that might scare you, that might make you feel um, uncomfortable, that would help you so much to build that confidence again, because you can tell your future self that I've been through this. I've seen this, I've talked to this person. So therefore, I've built that confidence along the way. And by doing things, you can build that confidence. So the sooner you start the game, the sooner you build the confidence, the sooner, it's rolling.
Absolutely. And my last question for you before we end off is what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
Um, I think something that I already mentioned, that it will take significantly longer than you would ever imagine to get to where you want to get. Because again, when I started doing this, I had this illusion of everything's going to work out in a year or two. And it was because I wasn't immersed in the whole startup entrepreneurship world. I was surrounded with people who were not in the startup world, and they would ask me like, so what happened? So like, they had some expectations because I had a startup. And again, from outside, startup means millions of dollars immediately coming to your bank account. And that's not how it works. And I feel like the more you play the game, the more the chances that you will win the game. And it's just a matter of how much resilient you are and how much patient you are. So if I could tell myself 2 years ago, hey, just be patient. It's going to take longer than you thought, but it's okay. Just enjoy the game. Don't think about the end results. Just take one step at a time and it will be fine. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, play by the long game. It's hard, but I feel like in the startup world and in entrepreneurship, you got to have the patience and see your results and your product till the end. All right. Well, thank you so much, Neda, for being here today. Before we end off, do you have any last words?
First of all, thanks so much for having me. Honestly, when you reached out, I was so happy that your generation are so proactive in terms of like reaching out to people. And I really like the confidence that you guys already have built. Because for me, again, a couple of years before, I wouldn't have the guts to reach out to anybody who is like even older than myself because I was like, they're not going to answer my email. But I really love the hustle that you guys are doing. And I really love the mission behind your podcast. And I think we should definitely put more voice on how women can help each other to achieve their goals. And also, something that I really want to mention is like women can have it all. I feel like everybody's like, oh, you either choose your career or you choose family. I feel like if we help each other and if we support each other, we can have both our careers and family. And we just have to be supportive of each other's passion and goals.
I love that. Thank you so, so much, Neda, for being here today. I absolutely love talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And here are my 3 cents on this episode with Neda. 1. Self-discovery. You'll gain a deeper understanding of your passions, strengths, and interests, helping you align your career with what truly makes you happy if it's something you want to do for the next 30 years. And fulfillment, which engages in work that you love, can lead to a greater sense of satisfaction and purpose as you spend your time doing something meaningful to you. And 3, long-term vision. Reflect on your long-term goals, which will help you create a clear vision for your future, ensuring that your daily actions contribute to your ultimate aspirations. Thus, that concludes the episode for this week. If you want to know more about how I relate to these amazing topics, then stay tuned for upcoming episodes. A free way to support this show is by leaving it a 5-star rating and a review on the player you are listening to. Let me know what you enjoy about this podcast, as it's a chance to tell me what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it too. Once again, thank you for finding me, and I hope we stay in touch with each other. Dito, you're listening to Aarna Sahu, the host of Aarna's News. Toodles!